All right, here he is, former Bengal great, friend of the program. We love Tim Mcgee. Nobody tells it like it is, like the man from Cleveland, Ohio, via the Tennessee Volunteers. Your Volunteers, Tim, I mean, they got it going on down there. Every time I open up the internet, it sounds like they're signing more and more big-time college recruits. Are they going to finally get some consistency back down there again?
I hope so, considering we had a phenomenal year, considering where we came from. But the football program it's on the upswing, and as long as it continues to stream up, we have one of the best facilities in the country, and we have one of the best stadiums in the country, and we have the best color combination in the country, and we have the best voice in John Ward, the late great John Ward, saying it's football time. And everyone uses that, but they cut off that in Tennessee. So, he should have trademarked that, and I'm pretty sure his family would have been really, really extremely happy.
One other thing I want to ask you about, which I've never gotten your thoughts on. What do you think about what's going on with Deion Sanders there at Colorado? Because, there's been so much made about roster turnover. He's running guys off. He's bringing guys in. He was in the news again this morning where, there are players, one kid from Florida, one kid from Michigan, a wide receiver from Florida, a defensive lineman from Michigan. These guys are being recruited by Georgia, Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama, Michigan, all of them, and Deion lands 2 more 4-star guys. What do you think of what he's doing out there?
You know what? There's 2 perspectives I have on that. Number one, let's go with the positive first. Consider he's turned the program around as far as hype is concerned. He's brought a lot of notoriety. He's brought, a tremendous amount of talent, and he continues to do that. And in order to have a winning program, you're going to need talent. You're going to need the horses. And whatever he's doing it within the framework of the rules, and what his likeness, of course, is a huge advantage for him. However, if you're the kids there and if you're the university, I don't know if this is good for the spirit of the game. I don't know if this is good for college sports. But I guess there's a cost for success even at the college level, and he's bringing more of a free agent NFL mentality to the University of Colorado, and he's changed a lot of things. And but one can question. So, for every pro, there's a con. One can question, he makes comments about the African-American schools or HBCs and how they didn't have but one player drafted and they're not getting the notoriety. But, you left it. So, he should, in my opinion, receive some criticism for that because, in order to fix it, you should have been there. You should have stayed there. However, he felt like most coaches do. They keep a mirror in their face and they watch out for, yours truly first and first, second, third, fourth, and so on and so forth. So, there's some positives at the University of Colorado. I know the fan base got to be excited. The students got to be excited. But ultimately, they haven't played a game yet. So they're going to have to win some football games in order to get the respect that they feel they deserve.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. All right, I want to get to now your recollections of let's start from a perspective of a rookie. So these guys that the Bengals drafted, okay, and we've talked a lot about them, whether it's Murphy, the defensive lineman, Brown, the running back, the 2 receivers, that kind of thing. When you're a rookie and you come into town and you're staying in a hotel and they lay out the schedule for you and you're there for OTAs, can you remember what that was like the first time you walked into an OTA as a rookie and the way you felt? Were you confident? Were you nervous? Were you scared? Were you all the above?
Well, we didn't have official OTAs. We had, you better have your ass here. Those were kind of the underwritten rules. You better be here. As a first round pick, my career, the way it started off in being drafted by the Bengals was a little different. I knew I didn't have the pressure, say, if I had gone somewhere and I needed to have instant impact on the football team. I had Eddie Brown and Chris Collinsworth as starters. So, I had a luxury pretty much of learning between 2 great players, and so I didn't have that pressure. So going into minicamp in particular, it was more of getting acclimated with the NFL speed, getting acclimated with the players, your teammates, the whole system. And for me, again, another thing that was great, the great Walt Harris, who coached me at the University of Tennessee, and Bruce Cosler ran and pretty much the very similar offense. So it was more just learning the terminology and like I said, just starting off becoming how do I become a pro? What type of career do I want? Do I want short term, long term? What are my goals? And then you really come into minicamp, quite honestly, and you were like, you're looking, go, man, I've heard about this guy and I've heard about that guy. And you go, that guy is really, really good. And then sometimes you go, that guy is overhyped. No doubt about it. And then you just kind of plug from a mental standpoint, you plug yourself in and say, okay, here's where I fit in and here's where I can grow. I see opportunity here, maybe not there, and kind of get to know the staff a little bit and the ownership. So I don't think it was I wasn't nervous at all. I think it was more of looking at the opportunity and see where I could plug my talents in and feel comfortable.
All right, well, let me take that a step further. I want to get into, we've seen in the college game, as it has evolved, and there are other guys who get credit for it. I think Urban Meyer probably had as much to do with it as anybody, where you're starting to spread guys out a lot, right? Not empty backfield, because in his offense, unlike some of the others, they ran the ball a lot. But nonetheless, you spread them out. And take the kid from Purdue as an example, okay? That's what they're doing. Wide open, a lot of empty backfield stuff. As a receiver, for this guy to be coming in, you mentioned when you walked in, you had Collinsworth and Eddie Brown, who were the starters. These guys who are walking in, these young receivers, they know that the Bengals have Chase, they have Huggins, and they have Boyd. So, start with a playbook. Is it a significant, really significant change? Besides just the verbiage, but from a philosophy of walking from a college program, whether it's Princeton or Purdue or Ohio State or Tennessee, is it a huge taxing difference to learn an NFL offense or this Bengal offense in particular?
No, not at all. You're running pretty much a pro system. There are no more pro college systems anymore. They're intertwined now. What they're doing at Ohio State, here's the funny part, Thom. It used to be frowned upon if a coach from the pros, the NFL, would take anything from the college coaches. It was kind of they looked down on the college coaches as far as what they were doing, because college coaches had to create. They didn't have the talent that the NFL coaches, and I'm talking about as a whole. So I don't think the NFL was much of an adjustment for me in particular, because we ran a very similar system. And nowadays, Zach Taylor at UC, he's probably running plays from UC or philosophies from UC and the Rams and so on and so forth. So the college coaching group has kind of intertwined themselves to kind of think alike. And we always call it a copycat league and all that. And the success that the Rams had, with Sean McVay, and then everybody, that had a cup of coffee with him was hired as a head coach. And obviously Zach has done a wonderful job, but I don't think they have much adjustments now in spreading and creating matchups. And that's what offenses is all about, is creating matchups. You talk about Chase, you talk about Boyd, and you talk about T. Higgins. What you're going to get. The best corner is going to single, and I've been saying this from day one, since T. Higgins was actually drafted. The best corner is not going to cover Jamar Chase. The best corner is going to cover T. Higgins. Why? Because you're going to double Jamar Chase, and then you're going to put your slot corner in there, and you're going to hope for the best with Tyler Boyd. That's what you have to do. And as far as when you look at those philosophies, Thom, how do you attack them? You got to have some stud defensive ends that's limiting the time for the quarterback to really process.
When you look at the wide receivers they brought in, both of these young men, I guess, are just extraordinary athletes. Okay, there are a lot of great athletes. I think the football players, along with the basketball players, are the best athletes in the world. But these two guys, Let me start with a kid from Princeton, and I'm not asking you much about him in particular necessarily because I don't know how much you know about it. But when a guy comes from a program like Princeton, do some people, that are maybe in the NFL that came from Tennessee or came from LSU or came from wherever, do they sort of think, Princeton, are you kidding? Or do they just watch the guy and go, oh, okay, maybe he shouldn't have been at Princeton?
Well, it's so funny because my daughter went to Princeton.
All right, well, so you love Princeton then.
So it's funny because you, in the locker room, you do say Princeton, but you got to be very careful because you may be asking the guy for a job, in the distant future. So you he's going to be smart. So that's going to happen. And I think I played with John Garrett. Yeah, John Garrett or Jason Garrett. John Garrett. And he went to Princeton. And, he was on the team and obviously what him and his brother went on to do. So they have the mindset. You know that. And they're going to pretty much work their behinds off to maximize their talent. So guys like them, they're not going to make mistakes. Coaches are going to absolutely love those guys. No question about it. But you are going to look at them and say, dude, I went to the University of Tennessee. This ain't happening. No, you went, and even though you have the attitude towards everyone, but small colleges, man, come on. This guy can't, he cannot outperform me. And yes, but you got to go out and compete, but you do kind of look down on those guys and make them pretty much earn everything they get. And once they earn it, they're just a part of the fraternity.
Okay. Your thoughts on, because look, when you played, the rules were very different, right? I mean, Sam Weiss or anybody else, when you came in for minicamp, there was hitting going on. There was a lot of hitting going on. Now there will be very little, if any, hitting going on. And much has been made about Zach Taylor and his philosophy. And again, it's hard to argue with it. I mean, they've been to back-to-back AFC championship games. But his philosophy compared to most of the NFL is to lighten the load on the players. As a player, I would assume you love it. But is there a part of you as a player that's going, man, maybe we need a little bit of that mixed in?
Here's what I think about that. You have to be very careful because you can't cookie cutter every single player on your roster. And what I mean by that, some players, myself, James Brooks, Eric Thomas, we came in 100% ready to go. Then there was other players I won't name, but they came in pretty much out of shape, so on and so forth. So it's a system where to treat everyone fairly, you don't treat them equally. There has to be where, there's certain individuals that do not train the way the coaches want them to train, and they come in and you hear about them coming in, they're not in shape, they're not ready to play. But I understand and I even agree with, because ultimately what Zach is doing that I think is just absolutely smart. You need your horses in December. And the NFL season, people could not even imagine. It's like being in multiple car accidents in one day. And your body, because you have that S across your chest when you're young, your body's able to recover. But it does take a toll on any player. I don't care if you're 21 all the way to 32. Obviously, the 32 is going to feel the effects much more than a 22-year-old. But Zach is doing a phenomenal job of understanding that a fresh mind and body will help you during the playoff run. You can get there. If you get there, I think that could be the difference in them going to the AFC Championship game opposed to winning the AFC Championship game and going on to the Super Bowl. I think I can't say to you how much I commend him for that philosophy.
Well, the players have clearly all bought in, whether it's, the Sam Hubbards of the world or the Kappas of the world who have played with other teams and that kind of thing. They think it's just phenomenal. And look, again, it's hard to argue and whatever it might be. As a young player, it's the last thing I want to ask you about. You're coming in, or let's even say a free agent player. Now, I know they're very different, but say a Nick Scott that comes in, right? I mean, there's a lot on Scott back there at safety, and the two guys they're replacing. They're starters from a year ago. at the end of the day, what do you want to get out of the next 3 or 4 days of minicamp before you have the long break leading up to training camp?
Mental. Everything's mental. Learning the plays, understanding and getting on the same page. And I'll tell you why that's important, especially on the backside of the Bengals defense. You got rid of Von Bell and Jesse Bates. Those guys, and I always say this, at certain points in times of the game, one, if not both of those guys, they were clearly in vision of every single player on the football field. So they know how to put players in the right spots. They see the mistakes, they're able to adjust to it, et cetera, et cetera. Now that you have new guys coming in, you have to utilize this mini camp to make sure that these guys understand the defense. Offense is pretty simple. Offense, you run a 5 route, you run a 5 route. It's just not going to change. Defensively, they've played so well together, and we know how important the Coach Lou has had those guys ready, but they are enjoying themselves. And when you enjoy yourself, Thom, the number one component of that is you don't have guys missing assignments. When you have guys missing assignments, that pisses players off as well as coaches. But if you can't rely on your teammate to be in the right spot at the right time, bad results and bad things happen. And that's what minicamp is for. Minicamp is, they're not going to go out there and run 40s. They're not going to go out there and hit. What they're going to do is they're going to go out there and get on the same page with shorts and walk through and, get a feel for the football team and hopefully stay away from injuries. And that's probably the key right there. Because any football team, Thom, any football team, the Bengals are very talented. Let's use them as an example. One key injury, the Bengals are not very talented. Plain and simple. They can go from we're going to win the AFC or pick to win the AFC North to one injury, and they're not going to win the AFC North. So you have to keep your players fresh and keep them available. And Zach Taylor.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Tim. Please forgive me.
No, you're fine.
I'm curious. When you said something, though, and it's the last thing I want to ask you, but I've always wondered about this. When you hear that a wide receiver, and you'll hear this frequently, people talking about on the radio, commentators on a game, that the guy's a great route runner. What exactly does that mean? You talked about relying on teammates. I've heard coaches say, look, if this play calls for the wide receiver in the slot to run 5 yards and slant, right, at a certain all the way down to the angle they want you to slant on. That exactly better be the route you run. Not 4 yards, not 7 yards, 5 yards. Is that true?
That is 100% true. When you hear that term, a great route runner, that means he is in the right place at the right time. Early is not good, and late sure is not good. To understand that means the quarterback, it starts with the quarterback, and it pretty much relied heavily upon the offensive line. You can't take extra steps. And again, we talked about this earlier, because those defensive ends and the push up front are not going to allow the quarterback to just go sit back there and pick apart a defense. And the way the game has evolved, it used to be the big clumsy guys were on defense, particularly on the defensive line. But now you have defensive ends running 4.340. So timing is of the essence. And a great route runner is a guy that you can rely on because a quarterback will know where he is. And when you talked about basketball, if you ever look at a basketball game and you see the 4 guys, typically 4 guys, 1 in around the 3-point line, you see them making passes because they know where that guy is supposed to be and putting that ball in the right shooting pocket. No difference in route running. That quarterback knows where that guy should be. And you hear it all the time. Oh, he threw it before he came out of his route. Well, yeah, because that's the only way you're going to be successful.
Who's the best route runner on the Bengals?
I will say it's funny because I think Tyler Boyd may be the best route runner inside. Why? Because he has the most field. By being inside, he has, you have a tremendous advantage on the inside because it's really hard to double a wide receiver. But when you look at Jamar Chase, he has such an awkward style. I have literally never seen a wide receiver run routes like Jamar Chase. Sometimes he comes off the ball hopping, but he's an exceptional talent. And a good coach like Eddie Brown, when I played with him, a good coach does not change that. A good coach go, oh, no. Don't, that's a bad coach. Say, don't do it that way. Do it this way. No. Jamar Chase does some things unconventional, but they're very, very super effective. And, again, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase has gotten on the same page with his style of route running. But again, it's not that, go to the parked car, make a right behind the parked car, and then run around the tree. It's just not that anymore. It's you better have your butt there because Joe Burrow is going to be on his back. And the second part of that, Thom, is the scramble drill and understanding where the quarterback is moving to and getting his vision. And then the last part of that is being able to adjust to any defense. So, yeah, the coach called a slant. The cornerback is sitting inside. There's no way I can run a slant. That slant becomes maybe whatever the game plan calls for. It can become a go. It can become an out. But to know that you have a nanosecond to adjust on the run, and that what makes a very good complete wide receiver.
I've always thought, Tim, and I watch a lot of lacrosse because my son was an all-state player and that kind of thing playing lacrosse. But I have always felt, and it goes back to what you were talking about with the scramble drill, and it's not that whether it's lacrosse, whether it's soccer, whether it's football, I've always felt like athletes could gain such a unique perspective by playing basketball, even if it's not highly competitive basketball, right? It could be just some rec league. But you understand the use of space in basketball, I think, better than any other sport because of the confined space that you have. And knowing, like to reference football now, nothing is more frustrating when you're just sitting there watching a game, some stiff like me, right? When the quarterback's rolling out to the right, the receiver ran the route that they ran that may have been a slant, but now the quarterback's out of the pocket and the receiver doesn't have the wherewithal to understand, I might want to break near the sideline, the side where he's running to get open, right? And I mean, to me, that just seems like space. Am I right on that?
That is 100% correct, considering like if you're on the sideline. If you're already on the sideline and the quarterback's coming towards you, well, you've run out of real estate. So you have to go up the field. And why do you go up the field? Because you're creating space for the guy that's coming across the field. So, yes, your analogy is so on point in understanding if kids would play basketball. And like you said, it doesn't have to be competitive to understand. And it's not just the spacing aspect of it, but what are the other guys do? How do you affect the next guy? If you have a zone and if you're a wide receiver and you run across a zone, how do you affect the next guy or the next hole? Well, you just ran into his space. So you have to sit down in your proper space and to know not just a complete wide receiver doesn't just know what he's doing. He knows what the whole concept of the play is going to be. He knows who the quarterback's priority is. He understands that. He understands, and you'll see, like Randy Moss will say, I didn't play hard every play. I mean, you would be a fool knowing that the quarterback's progression is way on the other side of the field, and you're not even in it. And there's times that happen. Why are you going to blast off the line of scrimmage, running full speed where there's no absolute purpose for it? You're just not in that play. But also understanding my job, Tim Mcgee, one of the fastest guys on the team. My job, run through the middle. Take the safeties. Eddie Brown comes underneath. Everybody, the crowd roars. Eddie Brown, 60, 70-yard touchdown. They have no idea what just happened. What happened was two guys saw me hauling ass down the field, followed me, that left Eddie wide open. So understanding the whole concept of what the coaches and what the play calls for, that also makes a complete wide receiver.
Tim, you're the man, and we love having you on the program. It's nice to see you again. I hope your summer's off to a good start. You got anything fun going on? You in Cincinnati? You down in Florida? Where are you?
Actually, I'm in Cincinnati, just enjoying it, playing a little pickleball. Actually, the norm. I'm headed to the doctor to get these old ricket knees taken care of. So that's a part of my life. But being back in Cincinnati, see that you got that cup there. We talked about that UDF.
Yeah,
I got to go get that. I got to go get that UDF shake, man. I got to
go.
When I'm in town. I know people love Skyline Chili, but I'm a UDF man.
Yeah, amen, brother. Yeah, I mean, it's funny, pickleball. I got injured the other day, my wrist, and I'm worried that something in there is really messed up.
Playing pickleball?
Playing pickle, I mean, you know how it is, Tim. You're up there at the net, and I liken it sometimes to there was a rash for a long time in Major League Baseball where these guys are so strong. This was years ago. That hamate bone down at the bottom of your hand, right? You can feel it right down there above your wrist, where guys were so strong that they would go to check their swing, and because of the force and now holding it up really quick and the weight of the bat, they would snap that hamate bone right off the end down there. It used to happen regularly in baseball. I'm surprised it doesn't happen much anymore. But I had a doctor friend of mine over the weekend tell me that for doctors and orthopedics, pickleball is the best thing that's ever happened to their business.
Yeah, no question about it.
Right? I mean, and I said, well, yeah, because it's all us old guys playing, and now we're trying to be athletes like you, and it doesn't work that way.
Hey, we're falling. How many times have you seen a ball lob over someone's head and you see that person just fall like a tree? Timber! and I can make millions of dollars if I just hit ice on the sideline. I run
right
Middletown Pickleball Association, and I can just tell you, man, just seeing the number of people. But it's addicting, man.
Yes,
everybody's playing it now. And it's no longer an older person's sport. It is a young person's sport. It's a family sport. And, man, I'm telling you, it's something to be reckoned with. It'll never compete with the big three or the big four, but it is something that all could do no matter, what level you want to be in.
It's every man's game. And you're right when it comes to whether you're with other couples or whether you're with your kids. I mean, I got a kid going to college, got a kid already in college, and the four of us can go out and play and just have a great time. It's a great sport. Although I don't like these braces and all this stuff.
Dude, Thom, I think it's funny as hell when kids come in the door and go, hey, can we play pickleball today? It's like, wait a minute. You were just 2 years ago, you were just like, that's for old people. What's up with that now? Oh, me, my friends, we're getting ready to go play. It's like, okay. It really is a good sport, and I'm an ambassador for the sport. So,
well, we got to get out sometime and play a little bit. That'd be fun. Mm-hmm. All right, man. Tim, thanks for your time as always. Great to see you, buddy. Have a great day today.
Appreciate you having me. Thanks,
Okay.
Thom.
Tim Mcgee, the great Tim Mcgee, number 85.